that's a little clear. Are you making money with those? Do you feel like you're trapped into having to offer those? Do you personally believe that they're terrific and all true and genuine? Those are three different questions. I'm trying to get to, are you also sometimes ashamed about them? And if so, why do you keep on running?
What was the final question? I didn't hear over the call.
Are you also somewhat ashamed about some of those premiums? And if so, why do you continue to run them?
No, we find that it's probably true, and I didn't give you a statistic, but it's probably true that the health premiums support us primarily. They probably bring in a majority of our money.
Oh, really?
I will give you an example. Hugh Hamilton was on last week for 3 hours with, I forgot, he made $600 in 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Gwen Scott made $9,000 in 2 hours. We cannot sustain ourselves. People are, this is what I'm talking about, you've lost sight of the business aspect. We cannot just be a station that is giving out the best information. We can sit here and preach to the choir all day and put all of the best information on the air, and if our listeners do not call to support us, we won't have a radio station. That's the bottom line.
And the regular health shows, are they also money makers? You know, we have these ones, I guess, 3 hours in the middle of the week. Dr. Ali? Yeah.
Yes, he was probably our biggest money raiser today, for instance. He made in the air either $6,000 or $8,000, I'm unsure, in a 2 hour period.
Okay. Thank you.
That's better than Gwen.
And it wasn't, I don't want to, the Hugh, I'm not picking on Hugh, it wasn't an aberration. This particular fund drive has been incredibly bad.
Right.
For, especially for premiums that are political in nature, straightforward in nature, whatever, we've had at least 2 different 3 hour periods where we didn't break $800 with straightforward political premiums.
I see.
And no, I mean, you have to be pragmatic about it as well. And if we can go for 21 days or 18 days or whatever it is and make $600 every 3 hours, and they'll shut us down at the end of the month.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
Who's next on the?
I got a list here. The next one is Jennifer, Alice, Kathleen, me, and Mia.
I just want to make a point of order that we now have quorum.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you need
Thank you.
We had a quorum when Max came in.
Okay, so what did you call the meeting?
Yeah, before we go forward then, I'd like now that we have a quorum, I'd like the quorum to approve what this body had approved already.
Where we are?
Should we do that?
Can we keep going? Yeah,
Yeah, we can do that. Okay.
On this item, we finished this item.
Yes, yes, okay. Jennifer's next.
I could just see that on.
Hi, thanks Tony for the presentation. I just wanted to say that Cass Ingram was on Wake Up Call with Bernard White and Amy Goodman more times than I can count over the years. So, you know, I don't think you should blame Tony for Cass Ingram's homophobia. Also, actually we're really lucky that we're not KPFK because they have Ian Masters for something like 7 hours a week. So, you know, we only have him, I don't know, an hour or whatever a week. And as long as we're on the subject of Ian Masters, since he does have a following, and I have had people who I've been shocked to know who like him, why can't he pitch for us? I mean, at least if he's gonna, you know, be on our air, let him work and earn some money for the station.
I am working on that. Today we had one of the other programmers who was on from the LA station pitch. Did a fantastic program. Who was that? Terrence McNally. Did a fantastic program this morning. But there's something I left out of my report that I wanted to say too, and I will just take this moment to throw it in about Ian and about. I'm not married to that strip of programming. I don't plan to have it there permanently necessarily. It is there because it works for following Amy. The only program that I'm really married to at this point is Guns and Butter. The rest of them
That's a good program, huh?
Yes. The rest of them can be replaced at any moment if we find a program with the gravitas of an Ian Masters. But we have to plug in the same kind of programming that can hold Amy's audience.
I
Alex.
find them okay, actually.
Okay,
I don't find
The next one is Alex.
I mean, he's another voice.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Tony. I wanted to put this into context. We've now been for a number of years had what we call premium-driven fund drives. And this is not new. It's been going on for I don't know how many years, as some people have commented. What's his name? Cass Ingram has been on. He was on Wake Up Call. He was a regular guest on Wake Up Call during every single fund drive for years, and we had similar kinds of premiums being offered in the past. I haven't made an accountant's examination of whether we have more of these types now or less, but clearly the whole issue of premium-driven fund drives is a symptom of a problem, and that problem is that we have not been sustaining our listeners. We have not been able to hold on to the listeners we have, and we have not been able to reach the newer generation of listeners. And that's not a problem that's specific to WBAI or even to the Pacifica community. All the PBS stations suffer through the same thing. That's why when you tune into the PBS, whether it's radio or television, when they're having a fund drive, all of a sudden they're doing oldies but goodies, all sorts of stuff that is geared toward the baby boomer generation, most of which has nothing to do with their regular programming. Everybody in the industry understands that this is not a self-sustaining way to go. You can bring in some money on a short-term basis, but the loyalty and the ability to reach new listeners is just not there. So we have to look for a new model of how we're going to be self-sustaining. And that's not a tactical issue, that's a strategic issue. It's a long-term issue. I'd like to hear from you how you think we can get from where we are now to where we really should be or need to be. We have to break out of this vicious circle of these, these premium-based fund drives that, and tying up more and more of our listening time with fund drives, pissing off our listeners, relying on I don't know how to characterize it, but people who are gravitating toward conspiracy theories or toward miracle cures. That's not really going to save the station in the long run. So I'd like to hear from you what your strategic plan is.
Well, at this point, I don't have a strategic plan to move from point A to point B as you describe it. I have had discussions about it, however. So I'd hold off before I gave you a plan. But the bottom line is this: you have to build audience. Ian Masters in Los Angeles makes $10,000 an hour during fund drives with books. I don't think there's another programmer in Pacifica who can do that. 10 grand an hour on his show, where he built an audience for years. He was on Sunday mornings, and literally it's like Gary Null is on the air. That's the other thing I find ironic. Everybody that's asking me to put on Gary Null is questioning the health programming. Anyway, Ian Masters, you have to have the kind of hosts, a Robert Knight, a Hugh Hamilton, who can build an audience over a time period with loyalty, who will come through. However, the bottom line is what I really believe is that we are Americans and we like things. And despite our past, where we could have, no, I really don't want to be on camera, brother.
I'm not
despite our past, where we were able to do this without premiums, I don't know that we can get back to that. I'd like to believe that we can, but my experience over these years has been it's really difficult. Chris Wendt does a pretty good job of pulling in money without having premiums. However, Chris Wendt usually has a first big week and then a huge fall off in the following weeks. So it seems like it's a good idea. We all want to move back to that. I have yet to see a person that can make it a reality. And throughout our network at least, even if you tune into the NPR stations, they are premium driven. Much like us, different kinds of premiums, but often they have a bigger focus on music. And so it's easier to sustain that for them. They have relationships with record companies. but we don't have those relationships, and so we have to rely on what works. But I am at least in discussion about a plan, and at some later date, will return to you with such an answer.
Kathy is next. So I have the lineup of Kathy, Mitchell, Nia, Manijay, and Jager.
I guess I don't have so much a question, but I just wanted to hand out. I brought in some material that we've been working on at the station, because we've had some staff meetings and we've been talking about how to go forward. And in many ways, perhaps we feel trapped by the premium-driven extravaganza. But when you're talking about having to raise $3-4 million a year, unless I feel that this board is going to do something substantial about raising money, or we're going to create some kind of development plan to substantially raise money, we may very well be dependent on premiums. But that being the case, we've also been working towards internally pulling together the resources and the creativity of our producers to create premiums. And this was, I think, an initiative that Tony brought, and which is very much appreciated by the staff. And we have 2 of these programs that we're working on, the Civil Liberties Documentary Project, the WBAI Freedom File, and Engulfed Anatomy of an Ecocide. Now these are 2 programs that producers are currently pulling together from their various work into a large composite premium that's going to be represented by all the different programs and however they perceive their contribution to this. And so what's happening is we have the premium driven thing happening, but at the other side we're trying to rise up from the creative aspect of it and pulling together these premiums. Now granted, at this point they're not going to be able to compete monetarily, but what it's doing and what it's capable of doing is sort of seeding the drives with more programming driven stuff, so that to the extent that they can make money, then we can begin to cross-pollinate that stuff. So I just wanted to pass these out so that you can see, if you don't mind, that that despite the fact that we're working on fund drives 24/7, and you might think it's not easy to come up with all those DVDs, but I promise you it's a lot of work. That we're also working as far as programming is concerned, and I think that this is an important aspect of that we're doing that we haven't done in many years since the days that Samori Markson was the program director. This is the first time we've gotten back to this kind of developmental programming for fundraising.
And if I might just comment, Kathy, I commissioned 5 of those for this fund drive. One of them won't make it to this fund drive, but 5 total. One will be the bigger one, which is the civil rights item, which we will do in October. But there have been 5 in-house premiums that we're trying to make to move away from expending so much of our money on premiums. So these are being produced by producers, and I came here thinking that we have to pull all of this talent together to work together on this sort of thing, and I'm glad to finally be able to implement it to a small degree.
Thanks. I'm next to Nia, Manijay, and Janet. Just first, the reason why some of us don't like the kind of health-related, I don't think it's health-related, disease-related premiums that are being offered versus what Gary Null brought, that you didn't understand that difference, is that Gary Null attacked the system. No matter what you think of Gary Null, like him or not, he attacked the politics behind what was driving people sick in this country to begin with, right? The ecological factors, the corporate factors, the FDA, the government decisions, right? So there's a huge politic in there versus the premiums that are on the air now in terms of health or disease, which is you blame yourself for being sick. You blame a gene. You search out for something in not even in the environment, but in your own lineage that's causing you to be sick.
An example of you blame yourself?
I'm not going to do that now. I just want to finish, and I will be glad to write this up and send it to you if you'd like examples. Secondly, but